So now we'll see measure phase. So what is measure phase? In defined phase, we are defined the problem, like what is the extension, what it yields to. Now we have the problem definition. Now we are going to measure the things, measure the output as well as input parameters and see the data. So these are the contents in the measure phase that we can use for measuring the project. First one is 7QC tools, CPCPK, Kappa analysis, correlation analysis, PDCA cycle, instrument correlation, data collection plan, data collection, so it is repeated here, data analysis, data collection, summary. Now let us see one by one. The first one is 7QC tools. So there are 7 quality control tools where you can use to measure and see the data of any process characteristics or product characteristics. Description. A 7QC tools are effective means by making use of which variation in the process can be identified, analyzed, compared and monitored. They're mainly used as the problem solving techniques. So 7 quality control tools are used as the problem solving techniques as well as to measure the process characteristics or product characteristics. So we'll be telling process characteristics and product characteristics. What is process characteristics? It is nothing but the data of the physical machine parameters, etc. Product characteristics is nothing but it can be a defect, can be a dimension, can be related to any functionality parameters and internal properties like load, strength, etc. So now the 7QC tools namely are cause and effect diagram, control charts, Pareto diagram, check sheet, histogram, stratification, and scatter diagram. Now let us see one by one each 7 quality control tools. The first one is cause and effect diagram. So before going to the explanation, so what is generally cause and what is effect? So effect is dependent upon the cause. So if you do the particular cause, the particular effect will happen. That is very simple. Cause and effect diagram or fishbone diagram we call it as, or we call it as Ishikawa diagram because Ishikawa has invented this. Therefore, we call cause and effect diagram as well as we call it as Ishikawa diagram as well as we call fishbone diagram. The fishbone diagram identifies many possible causes. Just note down this. This is identify this the possible causes for an effect. For an effect. See, effect is nothing but we can tell as output. For that output, many input causes will be affecting. So that is not the permanent cause. We can say it's a possible causes for an effect or problem. So it can be used to structure a brainstorming session. So what is brainstorming session? So everyone will be given a chance at a once and generate number of ideas towards a problem. It immediately sorts ideas into useful categories. Those ideas have been categorized into useful categories and make a fishbone diagram. So when to use a fishbone diagram? When identifying possible causes for a problem. See, there is a problem. To identify the possible causes, we use fishbone diagram. So fishbone diagram. A fishbone diagram is a structured brainstorming tool using categories to explore root cause for an undesirable effect. So there is some problem and there are many possible causes which is affecting the particular problem. So since it looks like a fish, the fishbone, therefore the name they get as fishbone diagram. Now let us see with an example. Now in this case, blurry photo that is an effect or the output. Okay, so what they have done, they've created some categories, hardware category related to the blurry photo, then environment as a category, then method as a category, then user as a category. So in each category, they have identified the possible causes that can affect the blurry photo. So in the hardware category, they have mentioned dirty lens. If dirty lens variation is there, there is a chance. They're not telling the dirty lens is the root cause, it's a possible cause. If dirty lens variation is there, there is a chance blurry photo can create. So that is one in the category of hardware. Second one is wrong lens. If they use a wrong lens also, there's a chance to this. Then coming to method, a wrong exposure, out of focus, wrong mode. And coming to environment, subject moving too fast. So when I click a photo, suddenly if you move the camera, then it may take time to store it. If you move faster, it can create a blurry photo. Then too dark. Then coming to user, he can be a shaky hand, then not following the instruction. So they've identified from a category what are all the possible causes that can affect with respect to the output or the effect. So now what they will do after identifying, they're going to Gemba visit. What is Gemba? Gemba is nothing but shop floor in the name of Japanese word. So they're going to shop floor and verify all this and find out really because of what the effect is happening. Suppose they go in the shop floor to verify, they'll check the lens. There'll not be any dirty lens. So this is not the causing the output. So like that, they eliminate all the not significant causes and identify any one of the parameter which will be affecting the blurry photo. So this is about cause and effect diagram. This can be used anywhere for any problem. If you want to go procedure wise, you can use cause and effect diagram. Next. So next is 7QC tools. In that we are going to see control chart. The second quality control tool is a control chart. So what are control charts? The control chart is a graph used to study how a process changes over time, how a process change over time. Say you're turning a diameter 4 plus or minus 1 mm, 4 plus or minus 1 mm. Okay, suddenly 4 mm, suddenly it goes, the variation is very less. Suddenly the graph goes high, it means it's producing oversize. So control chart is a graph used to study how a process changes over a time. You can draw conclusions about whether the process variation is consistent. So based on that, we can say whether the process is consistent or not by using the control charts. So when to use? When controlling ongoing processes by finding and correcting problems as they occur. So we are going to use it for ongoing process. Correct. Say example has been the turning dimension. We say it is 4. The middle value is 4. Then it is 5. Then it is 3. This is the lower specification and this is the upper specification. Suppose your data is going only here. Suddenly the data is going here. That means there is some changes have happened from running from 4 to jumping to near to the 4. So ongoing process we can use a control chart. When determining whether a process is stable, that means whether it is statistically controlled. So now let us see an example of control chart. So there is a data here. So what they're doing is every 1 hour they're going to check some samples and store the data. Therefore, every hour they're going to check two parts here. So it takes the average of that two data and it plots a graph. Now if you see the data as from the 3 mm, the shaft diameter varied and some has come into the limits and some are gone out of spec. Okay. So based on our data, the graph will automatically it will give upper control limit and lower control limit based on the percentage whatever they given. But we can consider only 5% from the top safety and 5% from the bottom. That means some 3.9 mm, 3.10 mm, and 4.9 mm. Some 10% or 5% you can give. So this is a control limit. That's why it's a control chart. You're creating a control limit. Why control limit? Your process has to run within the control specification, at least 10% safe. If your data is lying within this, it's said to be okay process. Suppose any data points comes here, it means it is crossing the control limit. Correct. Therefore, you need to take a corrective action. So, control charts. Example of control chart: diameter 4 plus or minus 1 mm, achieved with a turning, and below control chart can be used hourly to take the corrective action on the process. So, in this case, they have collected the data hourly 2 parts or 5 parts. Then average of that will be plotted on the graph within the control limits. See, when you use a Minitab, it will give a very constrained control limits. Okay, that is not possible in the reality. So what you can do is you can select the specification of the dimension, whatever the tolerance is given in the drawing. From there, 5 percentage you can control upper and lower side. So that is enough, and that works in the reality. So that's what they have done. They have taken only 5%, and they have created a lower control limit and upper control limit. So the data can be varied within the control limit. So now control charts, normal control charts, constraining 3% of total tolerance at USL, constraining 3% of total tolerance at LSL. So now, as we told, 5%, so they taken only 3%. And then within the control limit, we call it as a green zone. Above the control limit, we call it as yellow zone. That is above the control limit. Red zone will be out of specification. This is just for identification they have given. So this is a common control chart or a possible control chart that we can implement in the production. So if you put the data in the Minitab, it nullifies and gives a constrained one, whereas the tolerance that is allocated to us in the drawing, it is very, very difficult. Therefore, we can use 3 to 5% as constraining at the USL side and the lower side, and we can implement in the production. So that is about control charts. Now let us see Pareto diagram.